Have you ever found yourself in a crowded room, trying to earn your place with words alone? Have you ever believed that you needed to talk more, to be funnier or smarter, just to get others to notice you? Sometimes you'll see someone enter, say only a few words, and the whole room goes silent. Every glance, every bit of attention turns toward them. Their words carry weight. No matter how hard you try, what you say just drifts away like the wind. We grow up thinking the more we add, the more attractive we become. More words, more arguments, more expression. But Stoic philosophy teaches the opposite. Your strength lies not in performing, but in subtracting the need to perform, the need to seek approval, the fear of silence. When you no longer crave attention, that's when you truly become magnetic. When you're silent at the right moments, what you do say finally carries real value. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't argue about what it means to be good. Be good." The same is true for communication. Don't pretend to listen, truly listen. And then you'll see, just 6 phrases can make your presence unforgettable. Phrase number 1, number. You know this feeling. Someone reaches out, asks for your help, invites you to a gathering, or offers you a quick favor. Maybe it's a colleague wanting to squeeze one more task into your schedule. Maybe it's a friend who wants your presence at a dinner you're too tired to attend. Maybe it's a family member assuming you'll say yes, because you always do. You pause. Something in you wants to refuse. You want to say no. You know you should, but the word catches in your throat. Instead you say, sure, or worse, maybe. You say yes, even when every fiber of your being wants out. Why? Because no sounds cold. No sounds selfish. No sounds like a slammed door, a rebuff, a judgment. And so you swallow the discomfort and let out a polite yes, thinking you're being kind, flexible, a team player, a good friend, a loving child, a responsible partner. But have you ever noticed what happens next? Every time you say yes, when you want to say no, you teach others that your time is up for grabs. You tell the world that your boundaries are porous, your priorities negotiable, your energy inexhaustible. You're signaling that anyone can claim a piece of your life because you're too polite to defend it. The more you say yes out of guilt or fear, the less value your time seems to hold, not only to others, but to yourself. Think about the price. You agree to extra meetings that drain you. You say yes to gatherings that leave you empty. You take on chores, favors, projects, obligations, and all the little things you didn't choose but now must do. You feel yourself thinning out, your calendar packed, but your life strangely hollow. You become exhausted, overextended, and resentful. You wonder why you never have time for your own dreams, your own rest, your own needs. Does any of this feel familiar? Look at your days. Are they filled with yeses you never truly meant? Do you notice yourself resenting the very people you wanted to please? That's not kindness. That's self-erasure. Stoicism calls you to another way. The Stoics never taught that peace comes from pleasing everyone. They taught that peace comes from inner clarity and the courage to draw lines. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." What if you applied this to your yes and your no? What if you could honor your time, your limits, your truth with a single word? No. One syllable. the hardest word to utter. Yet, the foundation of all authentic relationships. You may think no creates distance, but in truth, it creates respect. The person who can say no calmly, without anger or apology, is the person others trust. You know where you stand with them. You know their time is precious, their yes is real. You might not like hearing no, but you trust it. Because a true no is a sign of honesty, not hostility. Each yes you give away lightly is, in reality, a silent no to something that matters more. Every time you agree to a trivial favor you do not care about, you're denying yourself, your priorities, your joy, your growth. You only have so many hours, so much energy. Life is subtraction, not endless addition. It takes courage to say no, courage to risk being misunderstood, to risk disappointing someone, to risk losing approval. But you do not have to be harsh. You do not have to explain yourself at length. You simply have to be present and honest. No, I can't. No, thank you. No, not this time. Each time you stand by that word, you strengthen a boundary, the invisible line between your life and the expectations of others. Notice what changes. At first, people may push back. They may not like the new you, calm, clear, unwilling to say yes by default. But over time, they begin to respect it. Your yes becomes a gift, not an obligation. Your presence becomes meaningful, not routine. You start choosing what matters. You find space for rest, for purpose, for the people and work that genuinely move you. And something else happens. The right people remain. Those who value you for your authenticity stay. The ones who depended on your compliance may drift away. This is not a loss, but a necessary shedding. Boundaries do not repel, they refine. They keep the people who matter and free you from those who only sought your unguarded hours. Take a moment now. Reflect on the last week. How many times did you say yes when your heart wanted to say no? What did it cost you? An hour of sleep, a peaceful evening, a moment with your own thoughts? Notice the pattern. Notice the fatigue. And then ask yourself, what if you had said no? What might have changed not only for you, but for those around you? The paradox is this. No does not destroy connection, it deepens it. You offer people the truth of where you stand. You offer yourself the space to be whole. When you reserve your yes for what you mean, people listen. When you hold your no with grace, people respect you. Even if they don't show it at first, your presence starts to have weight. This is the lesson the Stoics handed down through centuries. Your life is yours to shape, not for others to consume. You are not here to fill every request, to answer every need, to patch every gap. You are here to live, to contribute, to rest, to grow on your own terms. So, practice saying it. No. Try it quietly to yourself. Then, the next time someone asks for what you cannot give, let the word rise. Speak it calmly. Do not rush to explain. Do not drown it in apologies. Let it be what it is, a full sentence, a sign of respect for yourself and for others. Remember, every true no makes your yes sacred. Every boundary you hold is a gift, not a wall. In learning to say no, you find your freedom. In saying it with clarity, you find your peace. And as you do, you discover that the people worth keeping close are those who cherish your limits, who honor your presence, and who, like you, are learning to choose their lives, word by word. The room does not remember the one who says yes to everything. The room listens to the one who knows the value of no, and so do you. Phrase number 2, I appreciate you. You've said it before, haven't you? Thank you. Maybe 1,000 times. Maybe you said it today to a colleague, to your partner, to a stranger who held the door. And yes, those words matter. Gratitude oils the gears of our daily lives. But there's a difference line, subtle but unmissable, between thanking someone for what they do and seeing them for who they are. You don't have to close your eyes to realize how often you're evaluated for what you produce, not for who you are. We live in a world of scorecards. Your performance review, your achievements, your likes and comments and reposts. Each day your worth is measured in deliverables. It's exhausting. Sometimes you wonder if you stop delivering, would anyone still see you? Would you still matter? Now imagine this. You do something small, almost invisible. Maybe you can fill out the report. Maybe you can stay a little late. Maybe you show up day after day and hold it all together, even when no one's watching. You expect what? Maybe a thank you, maybe nothing at all. But instead, someone looks you in the eye and says quietly, I appreciate you. Not just, I appreciate what you've done. Not, I appreciate your help. Number, I appreciate you. It lands differently, doesn't it? It's as if, for a moment, someone has chosen to see you, not your output. Your humanity, not your utility. For many people, this is so rare it almost hurts. Let's be honest. We're wired to notice action. We reward results. But what if the most powerful thing you could give another isn't praise for the work, but acknowledgement of the person? Stoicism teaches us that people aren't just functions. They are whole worlds of struggle, hope, fear, and resilience. Seneca wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." Kindness, real kindness, begins when you look beyond utility, when you see the person. You might think this is soft, sentimental, but it's the opposite. It takes courage to look past surface roles and offer genuine appreciation. When you say, I appreciate you, you're not awarding points. You're recognizing existence. You're saying, I see you. I value you, even when there is nothing left to measure. Let me show you what I mean. A few years back, I came across a powerful story about Terry Crews, the actor, TV host, and former NFL player. Early in his career, Terry was admired everywhere he went. People praised his strength, his relentless discipline, and his big personality both on and off the screen. For a long time, Terry built his confidence on this constant recognition. He became used to being valued for his physique, his work ethic, and the roles he played. But there was a turning point. During a quiet moment, a mentor looked him in the eye and simply said, "Terry, I appreciate you." Those words landed differently. For the first time, Terry felt acknowledged not as a performer, not as a symbol of hard work or masculinity, but as a real person. Later, Terry shared that this moment completely shifted how he moved through life. He no longer chased applause or approval in every room. Instead, he was able to show up honestly, with less armor and more presence. That small act of genuine appreciation, he said, reminded me I have value far beyond what I accomplish. I don't need to prove my worth to belong. Maybe you're reading this and remembering a time someone saw you that way. Or maybe you're noticing how rarely it happens. Why? Because it takes attention. It takes presence. It's much easier to toss out a thanks and move on. It's much harder to stop, notice, and offer your presence, especially when the world is moving so fast. But that's exactly why it matters. Studies show the psychological impact of genuine appreciation. In their 2016 research article, Putting the You in Thank You, examining other praising behavior as the active relational ingredient in expressed gratitude, Algo, Kurtz and Hilaire, Social Psychological and Personality Science, the authors found that expressions of appreciation that specifically praise or acknowledge the recipient as a person, not just their actions, lead to stronger and longer-lasting interpersonal connections. People reported feeling seen, valued, and motivated to give more of themselves. The researchers concluded that acknowledging the person, rather than just the behavior, is a key active ingredient in gratitude. It creates a self-reinforcing cycle of trust, belonging, and mutual goodwill. In a world where so many of us feel invisible, a few honest words can change everything. Now, let's make this personal. Imagine you're at work. Your teammate finishes a tough project. Everyone's saying, "Good job." But you pause. You look at them and say, "I appreciate you." You watch their reaction, maybe a second of surprise, then a softening, maybe relief, maybe for the first time all week, they feel like more than just another cog. That moment lingers. Next time when you need help, they show up. Not out of obligation, but out of connection. This is the paradox of influence. The less you focus on trying to win people over, the more magnetic you become. Stoicism is not about withdrawing from connection, it's about showing up more honestly, more fully. It's not about addition, it's about subtraction. Subtract performance, subtract posturing. What remains? Presence, recognition, truth. So, next time you want to attract someone, whether it's a team, a friend, a partner, or a stranger, don't reach for cleverness. Don't reach for more. Try less. Try presence. Try these 3 words. I appreciate you. Watch how the room changes, how the energy softens, how connection grows where competition used to be. In a world hungry for recognition, I appreciate you is more than politeness. It's a stoic revolution, one quiet word at a time. Phrase number 3. Tell me more about that. You're standing at a friend's gathering. Conversations flow around you quickly, loudly, and often superficially. Someone beside you, not loudly, but with a quiet kind of hope, mentions they've started learning guitar. It's not a grand announcement. It's soft, almost shy, as if they're testing whether the world will care. Instantly, your mind leaps to respond. Maybe you played in college, maybe you know a few chords, maybe you have a funny story about that one time at band practice. The urge is strong. Share your experience, claim your ground, keep the energy moving. So you jump in. "Oh, I used to play guitar back in college. I was in a band. You should try fingerpicking here. Let me show you." The spotlight subtly shifts. Their story becomes your story. Their excitement fades into polite nodding. You didn't mean to steal the conversation. You just wanted to connect. But connection is not always about saying more. Sometimes it's about holding back. Stoic wisdom, ancient but urgent, tells us subtract, don't add. Listen, don't perform. This is the paradox at the heart of presence. When you stop needing to be interesting, you become magnetic. And nowhere does this paradox play out more clearly than in the small, easily overlooked moment when someone offers you a piece of themselves and you choose what to do with it. Let's pause and ask, what would happen if, instead of turning the story toward yourself, you simply said, "Tell me more about that," and then waited? Not to impress, not to rush, not to win the moment, but to truly see the person in front of you. Those 4 words, tell me more about that. Simplicity, but not emptiness. In that brief space, a world opens. You offer them the rarest of gifts, genuine attention. Think about Marcus Aurelius, journaling at night after days of turmoil, choosing to attend quietly to his own thoughts rather than declaring his wisdom to the world. He wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." What if we brought that strictness, inward discipline, to not rush, not interrupt, not compete, but brought tolerance and curiosity outward? In an article from the Wall Street Journal titled "The Loneliness of the American Worker," researchers found that the percentage of Americans who identify as lonely rose from 46% to 58% over just a few years. The piece describes how more Americans, especially men in midlife, are spending long hours alone at work or in remote jobs, often feeling invisible and unheard. The article highlights that genuine connection, being truly listened to, is becoming a rare experience. Yet it is exactly what people crave most, far more than small talk or surface-level interaction. The Wall Street Journal's article reveals how even the most visible figures can feel isolated and unheard. As LeBron James, despite being surrounded by fans and media, LeBron is known for quietly focusing on his teammates, especially during tough seasons. Instead of demanding attention or dominating conversations, he truly listens to those around him. LeBron James often credits genuine listening and presence as the keys to building trust and leading under pressure. His example reminds us, in a noisy world, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is hold space, offer attention, and make others feel truly seen. Let's return to that moment at the party. Instead of speaking over your friend, you say, "Tell me more about that." You wait. You notice the small shift in their posture. Maybe they look surprised. Maybe, for a moment, they're not sure anyone has ever asked them to continue, to open up, to be seen. They talk about how clumsy their fingers feel, how smoke on the water never sounds quite right, how practicing in the quiet of the night gives them a kind of peace. As they speak, you listen, not nodding to hurry them along, not waiting for your turn, but truly present. When you use this phrase, when you become the person who says, "Tell me more about that," you step out of the endless competition for attention. You become, for a moment, a rare place of refuge. You remind people that being heard is possible, that they matter. And here is the beautiful irony. They leave not thinking that person was interesting, but I felt interesting, I felt understood, I felt alive in that conversation. Your influence grows quietly from the inside out. This, the Stoics knew, is where real weight is born, not from how many words you say, but from the presence you bring. It's not about showing off what you know or performing, "Tell me more about that." Then be silent. Hold the space. Let someone else see, perhaps for the first time, that what they say truly matters. In that simple act, you'll find the rarest thing in modern conversation. Not attention for yourself, but meaning for both of you. That is the way of the Stoic and the beginning of real connection. Phrase number 4, I don't know. Have you ever felt a quiet panic rise inside you when someone asks a question you can't answer? Maybe it's in a meeting or over coffee, or even in a casual conversation, a moment when the spotlight turns and you realize you're expected to know. What do? If you're like most people, you do what we've been trained to do: perform. You reach for any answer that sounds plausible, string together facts, and mask uncertainty with confidence. You say something, anything, rather than risk being seen as ignorant or unprepared. It's almost automatic, isn't it? Somewhere along the way, we learned that I don't know is a verdict, a sign of weakness, a mark against our value. We learned to be afraid of those 3 words. And so, we hide behind certainty, even when it's a lie. But here's the secret no one tells you. Everyone feels that fear, and everyone senses the difference between someone who's bluffing and someone who's real. You know that feeling, don't you? The moment someone talks in circles, offers jargon, or rushes to fill the silence with half-truths, you feel it deep down. Something in you recoils. Something in you stops listening. Why do we fear I don't know so much? Maybe it's because our culture idolizes those who always have the answer. Maybe it's because, from schoolrooms to boardrooms, we reward quick replies and punish open questions. Or maybe it's more personal. Maybe it's because there's a small voice in each of us afraid of being less than, afraid of losing respect, afraid of letting people down. But have you ever truly paid attention to the rare person who can look you in the eye and, without apology or excuse, simply say, I don't know? There's a quiet power in that. No performance, no scrambling, just presence, just truth. Think about the last time you witnessed someone admit they didn't know something genuinely, calmly. Didn't it make you trust them more, not less? When a person is willing to reveal their own limits, when they don't hide behind pretense, you believe them. You sense there's nothing lurking under the surface, nothing they're trying to sell you. And suddenly, their words, especially when they do say, I know, carry so much more weight. This is not an act of weakness. It's an act of strength. It's a sign of security, of a self that does not crumble under the weight of not knowing. The truly confident are never afraid to say, I don't know. In fact, the most credible voices in any room are usually those most comfortable with uncertainty. Why? Because the people who fake answers are telling you more about their insecurity than their intelligence. The people who admit their ignorance are showing you they have nothing to hide. Socrates, often celebrated as one of the greatest thinkers of all time, is remembered for his profound declaration, I know that I know nothing. This wasn't an act of false humility or a rhetorical trick. It was the very bedrock of his philosophy and his wisdom. Socrates understood that the beginning of real knowledge is to recognize the limits of our own understanding. By openly admitting what he did not know, he set himself apart from others who pretended certainty. This admission didn't make him weak. It made him open to learning, to questioning, and to genuine growth. Socrates' approach fostered a deep sense of curiosity, not just in himself, but in those around him. His students were drawn to him, not because he claimed to have all the answers, but because he modeled the courage to confront every question, no matter how challenging or uncomfortable. He showed that strength lies in honesty, and that true wisdom begins with a willingness to listen, to doubt, and to keep searching. In a world quick to reward certainty, Socrates reminds us that embracing our own ignorance is the first step to understanding anything at all. What about you? When was the last time you let yourself say, "I don't know," to your colleagues, to your friends, to your children, even to yourself? What would happen if just once you dropped the performance? What if you trusted that your value doesn't come from being a walking encyclopedia, but from being honestly, fully, unflinchingly honest? Let's pause. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a different kind of conversation. One where you're not trying to impress. One where you're not racing to be the expert. One where you're just present. Someone asks a question you can't answer. You feel the tension, but you let it go. You breathe. You look them in the eye and you say, "I don't know." You watch what happens. You watch how the air changes, how people soften, how the masks come off. You've given them permission to be human too. You've built a bridge not through what you know, but through what you're willing to admit you don't. The Stoics taught that inner peace comes not from control, but from acceptance. Acceptance of yourself, your limits, your unfinishedness. "I don't know" is the doorway to that acceptance. It's a reminder. You are not here to impress. You are here to connect. And connection begins with truth. But there's more. When you say, "I don't know," you open a door for yourself and for others. Curiosity comes rushing in. You make space for learning, for collaboration, for wonder. You stop pretending and you start discovering. Life becomes less about performance, more about presence. Less about answers, more about real questions. So the next time you feel that urge to cover, to perform, to fake, it's okay to stop. You don't need to know it all. No one does. The most magnetic people aren't those who shine with all the answers, but those who draw others in with their honesty and their openness. If this made you pause, if you recognized yourself in these lines, know that you're not alone. Saying "I don't know" might feel risky at first, but in that risk, there's real power. It's the kind of power that changes conversations, changes relationships, changes lives. And if you want to keep exploring ideas like this, if you're ready to walk the path of honesty, courage, and true presence, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let's build a space where it's safe to say "I don't know," and where together we find what really matters. Because sometimes 3 little words are all it takes to begin again. Phrase number 5. That sounds difficult. Let me tell you a story. There was a time when someone I cared about came to me, their voice heavy with something I couldn't yet name. I remember the kitchen light, the half-finished cup of coffee, the way their hands fidgeted with the sleeve of their sweater. They started to talk about work, about a growing pressure, about waking up every morning with a knot in their chest. As soon as they paused, I did what I thought was helpful. I leaned in. I offered solutions. I told them what had worked for me, what I would do in their place. You should try. Maybe you could, when I felt that way. But instead of relief, I saw something close off in their eyes. The room didn't get lighter. It grew heavier, as if my good intentions had built another wall. I realized, slowly and awkwardly, that my instinct to fix things, to jump in with advice, wasn't making them feel better. It was making them feel alone. Because in that moment, my words were saying, "This shouldn't be so hard for you. There's a way out you haven't seen. And if you only did what I did, maybe you'd already be fine." Why do we do this? Why is our first response to someone's pain so often a piece of advice? Maybe it's the discomfort of being face to face with suffering. Maybe we want to feel useful, wise, or in control. Maybe we're afraid of silence, of just sitting in someone else's struggle with nowhere to go. But the truth is, most of the time, the people who come to us with their stories aren't looking for a fix. They're not asking for a manual or a map. They want to be seen, to be heard, to know that what they're carrying is real and that it matters. The words that sounds difficult can change the air in the room. They're simple. They're honest. They carry the quiet weight of recognition. When you say, "That sounds difficult," you step away from judgment and into presence. You stop trying to correct, compare, or control. You accept that what the other person is feeling isn't a problem to be solved, but a reality to be honored. You give their struggle a name, and in that naming, you help carry the weight. For a moment you say, "I see you. I don't have to fix you. I'm here." It's a small sentence, but it does something that no mountain of advice ever could. It invites trust. Suddenly, the other person is allowed to be as they are, without needing to apologize or perform. They can breathe, they can say more, or say nothing at all, and know that the space between you will hold. Their story can exist without being hijacked by solutions or comparisons. I think about how often we go through our days feeling unseen, unheard, pressured to hold it together, to smile, to be fine. The world rewards resilience, but punishes vulnerability. And yet, every one of us carries something heavy: stress, fear, regret, confusion. Most of us just want someone to say, "That must be hard." Not, "Have you tried yoga?" Not, "My cousin had the same thing." Just, "I hear you." Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic emperor who led through plague and war, wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." We tend to get this backwards. We're so quick to hold others to our standards, to measure their struggle by our yardstick, to push them toward the lessons we think we've already learned. But real strength, the kind that lasts, the kind that changes rooms, starts with acceptance. Not coddling, not condescension, not advice disguised as empathy, just a willingness to sit with someone else's reality and to say, "You're not weak for finding this hard. You're human." Think back on your own life. How many times did someone really see your pain without trying to edit it, or fix it, or shrink it? How many times did you leave a conversation feeling lighter, not because you'd found an answer, but because someone else finally understood the question? That is the rare gift you can give right now in every room you enter. The world is loud with advice, but quiet with understanding. When you tell someone, "That sounds difficult," you give them the rarest thing: permission to struggle out loud without shame. You become the person whose presence is remembered not for your brilliance or your solutions, but for your humanity. Maybe that's the secret to influence. Not being the person with the best ideas, the cleverest words, the most impressive stories, but the person who makes it safe for others to be real. And maybe, when you next find yourself tempted to fix, to compare, to solve, try stopping. Try listening, really listening, until you can feel what it's like to carry that particular weight. Then say, quietly, honestly, "That sounds difficult." You may be surprised by what happens next, because the truth is, most of us are desperate for one thing: to be recognized as we are. Not as a problem to be solved, but as a person to be witnessed. There's a deeper magic in words than we realize, not just in what we say, but in how we hold space for silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing isn't a phrase at all, but the willingness to let quiet fill the room. But that's a lesson for the final phrase. Stay with me, because next we'll talk about the secret strength that lives in silence. Phrase number 6. Silence. You probably know the feeling. The conversation slows, the room goes quiet, and suddenly, there it is, the dreaded gap. Most people panic. They scramble for anything to fill the silence: a joke, a fact, a pointless comment, anything to keep the awkwardness at bay. Maybe you felt it too, that rising anxiety when there's nothing left to say. Maybe you've jumped in with words just to escape that moment, only to later wonder why you felt so unsettled, so disconnected from yourself. It's not your fault. We live in a world that treats silence like an enemy. Every second is filled by notifications, by chatter, by background noise. We're taught that the more we say, the more we exist. The more we fill, the more we're seen. But have you ever stopped to wonder, what if the real weight, the real presence, isn't in what's added, but in what's left untouched? Most people are terrified of silence. It feels like a mirror, one that reflects back every insecurity, every doubt, every fear we usually cover with words. We worry, if I don't say something, will I disappear? Will people think less of me? Will the moment swallow me whole? But here's the paradox. What we fear most is often what sets us free. The rarest, strongest presence in any room isn't the person who speaks the loudest or the most. It's the one who can be still, the one who isn't afraid to pause, the one who can let a moment breathe. Take a breath with me. Recall a time when you listened to someone who held the room without force or effort. Maybe they answered a question, and instead of rushing, they paused just for a heartbeat. The air changed. People leaned in. Suddenly, every word mattered. The silence between their words made those words heavier, richer, unforgettable. Silence isn't empty. It's full of meaning, full of presence, full of power. But most of us are trained to see it as a void to be avoided, not as the substance it truly is. Why is this so hard? Because silence exposes us. When you stop filling space, you confront yourself. You notice your habits, the way you blurt, the urge to impress, the itch to control every moment. That's why Seneca, one of the greatest Stoics, wrote, "Silence is a lesson learned through much suffering in the world." He knew only those who've faced their own restlessness, who've met their own discomfort head-on, can become truly comfortable with quiet. And that is why this is the hardest principle. Anyone can learn a clever phrase or a social trick. Anyone can memorize the right things to say. But to be silent, to trust that your presence alone is enough, to know that you don't need to fill the room with noise to matter, that is mastery. If you're honest, maybe you recognize the ways you run from silence. Maybe you catch yourself explaining too much, Maybe you interrupt or rush to fill the gap, not because you have something to say, but because you're afraid not to. That's okay. All of us do it. All of us are still learning. But imagine, just for a moment, what would happen if you stopped, if you sat in the quiet, if you let your words settle before you speak again, if you left a space at the end of your sentence and let the silence speak for you. You might notice something shift, not just in the room, but within yourself. The pressure to impress would fade. The urge to fill every moment with noise or reassurance would loosen its grip. Suddenly, you'd see people begin to lean in, listening not just for your next word, but for the intention behind it. The quality of your presence would deepen. In that pause, you'd realize that conversation isn't a race to be won, but a connection to be built. You'd find that your ideas land with more impact. Your authenticity becomes more visible. The people around you might even open up, feeling safe in your calm. It's in that quiet between words where trust and influence truly grow. What if your greatest strength in communication isn't in saying more, but in daring to say less? What if the real magic happens in the spaces you leave untouched? Try it. See what changes. This is not a void, it is an invitation. When you pause, you allow others to join you. You show them respect. I value this conversation enough to consider my words. I honor you enough to listen, not just to react. Your stillness becomes a signal. Here is someone who is at ease with themselves. Someone who isn't rushing to perform or to please. Someone who trusts that what needs to be said will emerge, and what doesn't can rest unspoken. You don't have to be a philosopher to see the wisdom here. Watch a seasoned leader, a true friend, a loving parent. They know when to hold silence, when to wait, when to let their presence say what words cannot. They do not run from the gap, they rest in it. Silence gives your words weight. Think of it like music. The notes matter, but so does the space between them. Too many notes, and the song becomes noise. The greatest musicians know it's the pauses that create feeling, the rests that give the melody meaning. In your next conversation, try this. When you feel the urge to rush, pause instead. Breathe. Notice the urge to fill, but don't obey it. Wait a moment before you answer. When you finish speaking, let the silence linger for a beat longer than feels comfortable. You might be surprised that people will listen. They'll lean in. Your words will have landed. They will echo. You don't have to perform. You don't have to force a connection. The quiet, steady presence you carry is enough. Marcus Aurelius never needed to shout to be heard. Seneca did not waste words trying to please the crowd. They knew it is not in addition, but in subtraction, that strength reveals itself. If you can embrace silence not as absence, but as presence, you will find a new kind of power. You will realize you do not need to chase attention. When you are still, others will come closer. When you are calm, others will find comfort. When you are present, others will remember you not for what you said, but for how you made them feel. Maybe you're ready to try, maybe not. But the next time you're in a conversation and that gap appears, don't run. Stay, breathe. Let silence be your ally. That's the sixth phrase. Not a word at all, but a presence. And that is the final secret everyone is searching for. What makes these 6 phrases powerful isn't just what you say, but who you are when you say them. They all share one thing. They demand your presence, not performance. When you truly listen, when you have the courage to say, "I don't know," when you hold space for someone's feelings without rushing to fix, when you're unafraid of silence, when you see people for more than what they offer, and when you guard your time with quiet strength, that's when your words carry real weight. The Stoics knew this long before us. Real attraction isn't about adding more, it's about subtracting what doesn't matter. The moment you stop trying to impress is the moment people notice your presence, not your performance. So, which of these 6 phrases will you try first in your conversations, or have you already experienced the power of simply being present? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to keep building this inner strength, don't forget to follow for more videos. Your Stoic journey continues right here,